Well, I knew it was going to happen relatively soon, but I had no idea it was going to happen quite so soon. But then again, considering how long I've delayed on the project, not so much of my own volition, so to speak, but mainly because of circumstances, many of which actually began with the total collapse of my former hard drive and the need to replace all my files and try to get myself back caught up on many of the other projects and activities that I was normally used to doing. And so certain things had to take a back burner, and I would have to find time to dedicate to some of my more involved projects. And this one being, as I said, sort of like my magnum opus, if you will. But as a result of all these different circumstances and things beyond my control, including work schedules that kept me extremely busy and other things I had to prioritize, I'm finally getting to the point where I'm really starting to see things come together. This project that was over 2 years in the making, and for some of you who remember, I actually did manage to start the process going, at least the first several installments, back when I still only had the two channels. And even then I knew that it was going to be hard-hitting, it was going to be controversial, and it was going to be as in-depth in details as I could possibly make it. And granted, since then I decided to go and expand upon it even more deeply, and to make sure that each and every point of contention that could possibly be raised on this issue would actually be addressed. And I was going in a mad rush trying to make sure that I could actually get everything done in a timely fashion so I can get started on this project, especially now that I'm in a situation where I can actually focus the kind of time and energy that I normally would have liked to, minus some additional time that I really would have liked to have spent with it. But unfortunately, as I said, getting involved in intimate relationships cuts into your other priorities as well, so I had to juggle that around. But even so, I still managed to get it to where I could really devote the time and attention and really pour myself into it as much and as deeply as I possibly could, and come out with a kick-ass product, if you will. But it seems like what I had pretty much envisioned and what I was kind of like preparing everyone for came to fruition considerably sooner than I was expecting it, because as I had stated, that this case was going to be a Supreme Court challenge. There was absolutely no question in my mind about that. And of course, as I've stated again, whether sort of like off the cuff or as will be revealed in this project once I'm finished getting everything assembled as I wanted, that I'm clearly confident, let's say in the high 90% confident, that perhaps not this cycle, because perhaps what may happen at this juncture is that the Supreme Court may acquiesce, and that's not the word I was looking for. They may I'm sorry, I can't remember my brain's a little bit of fog right now, but they may just hold off on doing an official federal ruling on this one, and they may still try to beg out of trying to put any sort of a federal interpretation on this and try to leave it to the states to make a decision. But even if they do that, eventually it's going to have to set a precedent in the federal ruling. There's going to have to be a federal ruling on this. There's no getting around it. And just because they may delay it or try to delay it by trying to shove it off the responsibility onto the shoulders of the states this time, which now that I thought about it, now that I had a chance to discuss it with somebody, this looks like it's probably going to be the more likely outcome again this time. But once you set something like this in the jurisdiction of the states, if somebody wants to share the exact same benefits from one state where the process is legalized and go to another region of the country where it's not recognized and officially recognized, then what's going to happen again is another Supreme Court hearing to federalize it, because again, this touches on constitutional grounds and constitutional issues, and everyone's going to pull up the whole equal protection under the law clause, and the fit's going to hit the shan. But be that as it may, this whole thing that, and of course, most folks already know my position, my stated position on this already, so I'm not even trying to act like I'm pulling the wool over anybody's eyes here. But when you examine the legal ramifications of this, not to mention, of course, the social ramifications and how society will be affected by whatever rulings come down the line with regards to this examining this the so-called same-sex marriage thing under the long, hard microscope. Sorry, that did not mean that as an unintended pun, but see, here's the thing. I'm going to be coming in on this thing rather late, unfortunately. I was thinking that I still might have had time enough to where I could get it all done and present my case. At this point, it looks like it's going to be a 34 segment, because I'm trying to keep my files, my individual files and my individual chapters down to between 10 to 15 minutes, so I can fit within that window. But at the same time, I want to try to keep them as small as possible, rather than doing larger projects or focusing on too much information at one time, for the sake of attention spans, and to give people a little bits to bite off and chew upon. And then, of course, as part of my little tactic, to get you to think that once I'm discussing one little element of something, you may think that, oh well, I know you're going to ignore this, and you ignored this part of that, and hey, guess wait for the next chapter, to wait for the next couple of chapters, because I guarantee you I've addressed that too. So this whole thing is going to go very deep, and it's going to be very involved, but at the same time, unfortunately, as I said, it's also going to be very late. Much later than I had originally anticipated. See, I wanted to get this stuff done and out there and give people a chance to mull over it before it became a federal case. As I stated before, I knew was bound to happen. There's no way that it could go except to become a federal case. But unfortunately, I got beat to the punch. So a lot of the information that's going to be revealed, or that's going to be expressed in this series that I'm doing, whatever developments take place between the time that I begin and by the time I complete this series, and what has transpired as far as the discussions and the federal rulings and the state's rulings and all this other mess, whatever happens with regard to all those things happening together, keep in mind that if it appears that I'm overlooking something, or I didn't include a certain particular bit of information, or that my treatise isn't as up to date as the current events have things unfolding, just understand that I am operating off of what has already been transcribed as part of my intended hard draft. So whatever information is already there is the information that I'm going to share. Perhaps, I doubt it, but perhaps if something should come along, if there's additional clarification which I feel that I can incorporate into one of the preset chapters, I may just possibly try to set aside a little bit of a gap here and there in order to include just enough pertinent information just to keep the flow of the thing going and to keep things a little bit up to date. But as it stands, my final draft is going to be essentially what I'll be sharing with everyone, and whatever developments happen between then and whenever the time is completed, just understand that it's going to be just possibly slightly archaic. But it's still, the information is still going to be the same, the sentiments are still going to be the same, the factual information is still going to be the same, the rationales and the logical examinations, all of that, everything is still going to be accurate and relevant. So even if it does find itself a little bit dated, or if I missed a certain point here and there because of the events that are taking place as a result of the current hearing, then just understand that I'm going to be missing out on a few details. But the major issue, the major premise, the major bulk of the information and all the factual examinations and checking my sources and formulating the logical, reasonable arguments and everything, all that's still pretty much going to stand as it's intended to be, because it's not really going to change matters anything at all. It just means that I'm just a little bit behind the game. But the information is still going to be relevant, it's still going to be strong, and I'm still going to state my case, and I will explain in full detail why I stand with the final interpretation which I give to it. And anything that I share anybody can have at their fingertips, raise further questions if they want to, and just I don't know, I doubt if I'm ever going to change anybody's opinions, because this is such an emotional issue that people have decided already which camp that they're going to be in, and mostly it's going to be based on emotionalism. But see, what I wanted to do is I wanted to break away from the emotionalism. I wanted to set out facts, and I wanted to set out considering whatever evidences that anybody might bring to the fore to try to justify one argument or the argument. I want to do a full examination, so that way, if nothing else, when somebody hears my take or my perspective on the issue, they'll know that it comes from a place from deep, hard research and from really delving in and trying to get as much information about the thing as I possibly can, and that it's not just going to be because I have an emotional investment in the thing one way or the other. Kind of like how I finally came to the understanding and realization that the whole thing about September 11th and the World Trade Center collapse and all of that other stuff, how after taking time to sit back and examine and scrutinize and to factor in all the evidences and all the testimonies and everything, and realize that the whole conspiracy theory angle of that whole thing is nothing but a bunch of nonsense, as a bunch of people who, just for whatever reason, just don't trust government at all. Not to say that government is trustworthy, mind you, but you understand that I'm about truth, I'm about facts. I want to make sure that anything that I base my beliefs on is going to have something solid and tangible and of some real substance backing it up. And it's going to be factually based. And so the same is going to be here. So hopefully within the next 2 weeks at the latest, I should have completed everything as it relates to my final draft being transcribed, and from there I'll be making the next efforts as to trying to figure out what multimedia I want to use as far as presenting a project that's at least visually stimulating as well as informationally stimulating. So we'll see how that goes after a fact. And of course, be sure to subscribe to channel 1984 Kid Brother is Watching, because the entire series will be posted to that channel under the username of Kid Brother is Watching. So it will be a V1984 specific project. So with that, let me go ahead, shut down, and just I encourage everyone to just stay on the watch, and hopefully I'll give everyone something to really mull over and to really take to heart. Aloha.